Hey everyone, TG here, and welcome to the free video. Today is Friday, December 11th. Hope everybody's going to be having a good weekend when you go and check this video out. So let's get into the market and see what's been going on. We've had a couple pullbacks that were happening, and what you can see is we got to just about, or depending on where you actually measure from, but we basically went to the 127 extension on the S&P up here, and you can see that we finally pulled back. And then also what I tend to look at is that we had price running off of the hourly 50 for quite some time. And then through the Moxie indicator, which is the primary indicator that I use, it's the proprietary one. If you guys are interested in it, you can find it out at It's Simpler. But you can see here, price on the 15-minute time frame had been moving up and up and up and up for days. But notice that the Moxie indicator kept trending down, 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 down. This was telling me that we were kind of working against ourselves, and at some point this was going to change and we were going to need a pullback. A lot of things that are still looking pretty good out there. This so far is what I'm looking at is just a pullback, trying to refresh the markets, trying to get some new hands and weak hands out of there and some new money in circulating around. Now today was a little bit stiffer of a pullback than I was expecting, but you can see that midday it rebounded, so it kind of came back, not too shabby. There might still be some work for this to accomplish and actually get out of its little groove and out of its rut, but so far this is looking fairly orderly, and until we see something different, I'm going to be looking at this as just a pullback and an uptrend, and I do think that a lot of names out there are still looking pretty good. Even on the daily chart, you can see here we still have price over the daily 21. So far, as I said, it's been an orderly pullback to that. Now we'll have to see what comes further. This first move down is usually pretty easy. It's the bounce after that, also fairly easy. It's kind of a question of what happens after the bounce. Do we run into resistance? Are we going to run into the underside of the hourly 50? Do we run up here, double top, and roll back over? These are the things that we're going to have to kind of watch as time goes on. One way to look at that in a kind of a counter view is with the VIX and the UVXY, if that is another vehicle that you like to trade. Now what I've been looking at for here, and you can see with the, it's not populating because the market's closed and the VIX usually has an issue with that. But what I want to show you is that this is the Moxie price trigger. This indicates when the indicator goes from negative to positive, and so this doesn't populate because the markets are closed. But right now you can see that that actually was a setup for the VIX, giving us a heads up that hey, something is coming, this thing wants to move up, and sure enough it did. Now, as I said, this is the first move, so I'm waiting for the second move. It is natural for price to run into the underside of a downtrending hourly 200 in this case. We're also kind of running into some resistance here on the daily chart, and so from this point I would expect the VIX to generally start to fade and move down. The question is, after this move down with the VIX and the move up with the market, where do we go from here? So let's kind of look at some big names. Amazon is always one of the tried and true that everyone's go to, and what I'd like for you all to understand is bigger picture. Where are we? This today maybe was feeling a little uncomfortable, maybe yesterday and the day before as the pullback started, but if we look at the big picture, we are really kind of just flagging. We've had a really good run over the last few months on the monthly time frame, and since then price and stocks like Amazon are just going sideways, and they're coming closer into support of their monthly 10 SMA, and so far their weeklies are looking pretty good too. Now they haven't triggered yet for me. We can see here on the daily and the hourly, they are still underneath this resistance line. They have not gotten over their hourly 50 yet. But I'm looking for them to start to find some bottoms and some turn around to find that support, but we're going to need the market to turn around as well. So again, looking for that bounce, looking for something, and we'll have to question and say, okay, is this bounce actually sustainable? Do we find support, or is this going to be turning into something a little bit bigger going on down the road? Another one, if we get into some of the precious metals like GLD, once again we look at the weekly and the monthly time frames. Look at where we are. As I said with Amazon, we had a huge move on the monthly time frame, and now we're pulling back basically to the monthly 10 and to the weekly 50 SMA. So these are looking pretty good. If you guys are interested in gold or precious metals, silver, they're all starting to look about the same. And on the daily chart, we have price basically bouncing off of the daily 200. And I call this as a trampoline move. It's when price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. That is a high pressure, high buoyancy. It's like trying to put a beach ball underneath water. It wants to shoot right back up. And so this is the condition that is starting to form. I have to wait and let it trigger. But if it triggers, this could be a really, really good move, especially since we're seeing some support on the weekly and monthly time frames. So look for those. Look for precious metals. Look for the big cap tech stocks. And then look for basically the indices to resume their uptrend after this. When we get this bounce, we'll get the pullback resolved, we get the bounce, and then we'll kind of see where we go from there. So I hope everybody's having a good time. We'll see you next week, and enjoy your weekend.